Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Slip Safety Show. I'm Christian Harris and I'm the founder of Slip Safety Services and the host of today's show with my guest Dan Smith of Ingenious. This one is a little bit out of left field, but I think it will be really valuable for you guys. It's all about how to maximise your visibility on LinkedIn, which is a platform that over recent years has grown massively in terms of its importance. And in fact, there's a very good likelihood that you've become aware of this show through LinkedIn in the first place. So that's just proof in point. Dan has a business and we're one of his clients, and it's all about helping people to grow their network, grow their visibility, and grow their influence on LinkedIn. We talk about kind of how that's done at a very headline level with some quite actionable hints and tips that you can take away and work on yourselves, from content to engaging with other people to when and how to send out messages and lots more besides that. So although this one is slightly different, I do think it's of value to everybody watching this or listening in on the podcast version, because LinkedIn really is the best way from a business to business perspective to get your name out there in front of your ideal prospects if you're in a business to business kind of sales setting, or to grow your influence in your industry among your peers, or to learn about what's going on in terms of best practices and innovations and so on and so forth. So I hope you enjoy this episode. As always, we would be delighted if you could hit subscribe and give us a like and a comment if you've got the time, and particularly if you find something of value out of the episode. So with that, let's get into it with Dan Smith of Ingenious. Dan Smith, welcome to the Slip Safety Show.
Good afternoon, Christian.
Good to see you. We haven't seen each other in person for a while, but it's nice to see your excellent haircut in
Thank you.
I'm sure it's good to see my not so excellent haircut.
It looks the same. It looks the same as it did pre-lockdown.
Well, Katie, my wife's cut my hair and done quite a good job, so it's due for another cut. It's getting a little bit long around the sides.
That's good. But... Yeah. I've ordered some clippers which are due to come today, so I've had 2 haircuts so far over the last 8 weeks, which is not bad going. So
that's not bad going, no.
Yeah.
No.
And I've put a jacket on just for you, so your viewers aren't horrified by my tattoos. That was the idea. I
appreciate that. It would have been a good juxtaposition, the popped collar on one side and the tattoos on the other. But I'm sure plenty of other of my guests have looked a lot worse. Most people in lockdown times haven't bothered putting jackets or shirts on to things like this. So you're looking smarter than.
That's good. At least one of us looks professional on this call.
Exactly. That's the main thing.
That's fine.
So I've kind of explained in the intro the fact that we've been working together on LinkedIn, but and I thought this would be valuable for the audience to sort of learn what's possible and how you can help. So do you want to give a quick overview of your background, and then at a headline level what Ingenious does?
Yeah, certainly. So my background's sales. I've started in telesales jobs, market research, lots of cold calling. I've sold training and development. I've sold advertising space. I've been in facility services for quite a few years, selling commercial window cleaning for Rentokil, which is sort of quite a large part of my working life. Yeah. So I've been out on the road, done all manner of sales jobs, door knocking, the stuff where you have to go and get compliment slips and then take them back to your boss to prove how much work you've done during the day, all that sort of stuff. And then 8 years ago, I started a telemarketing business, which mainly operated within facilities because, again, it was a market I knew quite well. So generally, we were making appointments for cleaning companies, property maintenance, building management systems, all that sort of stuff, which obviously led you and I to know each other in the first place because we were doing some work for one of your previous existences before. And then we started I started offering LinkedIn as a service about 2 years ago now. And then set up my current business Ingenious about 18 months or so ago. So we've been doing this quite a while now. And I like to think that what sort of separates me, I guess, from a lot of other social media types is I've been on the tools and done the sales side of it rather than come up through the marketing and touchy-feely, nicey social media side of things. So I've always been very focused on making sure that what we're doing is actually generating something and, you know, getting conversations going and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Okay. And what would you say, having done obviously the telemarketing in the past and now LinkedIn, what would you say the main kind of differences are?
Certainly. Well, two ways to come at it. Now, if you're doing telemarketing as yourself, that's different from running it as a business, as is managing your own LinkedIn profile versus providing it as a service. They're quite different things. Now, I consider myself to be pretty good at doing cold calling, just by virtue of the fact that I rarely sound salesy. I don't sound pushy. I'm very chatty. As you know, I'm quite open to making rubbish jokes about things at inopportune moments, and that's always stood me in good stead. But it's challenging to then run that as a business because you've got to find people either that you can train to do it as well as you can or better, or the business really can't grow. You know, it's difficult to train and retain even, get my teeth in, that's why I don't do calling anymore, retain people that can do the job well. It's also generally considered to be quite a sort of entry-level minimum wage sort of job. So typically companies put people on the phones that haven't really got much experience in selling, don't really know the market very well. It's therefore difficult to get those people to engage prospects the same way as somebody that's done sales for kind of 20 plus years as I have, not meaning to blow my own trumpet. But what I would say in terms of social media versus that, it's a lot easier to replicate the process. You can very easily see what works, what doesn't. Yes, you do need to have a knowledge of that person's business, but it's a lot easier to tweak the messages and tweak the copy and tweak the content and see what works and see what doesn't. So it's a much more manageable and tangible process, I think, doing lead gen through LinkedIn versus calling.
Yeah. And I suppose it's also easier to track as well, because obviously, whilst you could theoretically record every single telephone call that's made by somebody doing prospecting, realistically, nobody's ever going to listen to them all back and analyze them and stuff. Whereas obviously, you know, if you're doing stuff on LinkedIn, it's all there, isn't it? It's all in black and white.
Yes, yeah, it's very transparent. Again, you know, doing it as a business, that's one of the things I like, is that clients can see literally everything that's being done. You can see the messages that are going out. They can see the people that are being connected to. They can see the replies that come back. They can see who's liked or commented on posts and vice versa. There's no mystery over it. Whereas, as you say, with telemarketing, even if you provide recordings of calls to people, they're only really going to listen to either the very good ones or the really bad ones. So, and the bad ones are just going to cause a whole world of trouble if you're then trying to provide that as a service to somebody. So, yes. Plus as well, I mean, another thing I was thinking about when I was sort of preparing for this, it's typically when you're doing a telemarketing campaign for somebody, the usual route is that you would go to a data company and purchase a set of data, which, if you're lucky, will have exactly the right contacts you need. So if you do cleaning services or hygiene or, services similar to yourself, you're going to want facilities managers, building managers, estate managers, that sort of stuff. The problem is that, perhaps not at the moment, but people generally move jobs quite a lot the lower down in the company you go. So the CEO is likely to stay there for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years plus. But a facilities manager might move job every 6 months or whatever, so you've not got a current set of data, whereas LinkedIn pretty much is accurate. Most people, if they move jobs, will update the role that they're in and the company that they've gone to and all the rest of it. Yes, you are at the mercy of each user filling their information out accurately, but you've got a constantly evolving set of data there, which is incredibly useful if you're looking at targeting that for sales purposes.
Yeah, and also if you particularly if you've got like Sales Navigator, and maybe we should talk about that in a minute, what that is for people that don't know. You can filter and see people that have been active on LinkedIn, and therefore if they've been active,
Yes,
then you'd expect they would have updated their profile to be accurate. Otherwise, what's the point being active?
yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, well, not only that, but also details of people that have changed jobs in the last, I think it's 30 days, 90 days it might be. Excuse me for getting one slight fact wrong. It probably won't be the first mistake I make over the course of this call. But the fact being, you can still see when people have changed jobs, which, it's you pay a premium for that sort of information if you were going to a data provider for that.
Yeah.
Because they've got to put in the work to source that information. Whereas if you've got LinkedIn and particularly Sales Navigator there, the level of detail you can go to in terms of job titles, location, you can go radius of a postcode. So if you're looking for, 20 miles of Ipswich, I guess there's business within 20 miles of Ipswich. Who knows? You could choose that, for instance. So it's incredibly flexible. And, just in terms of the amount of people that are on there, it's somewhere in the region of about 650 million people worldwide on LinkedIn, which is a mind-blowing set of data when you consider that the majority of those people are going to be in employed positions, potentially customers of yours. It's a great tool.
Yeah, big market. And how would the sort of statistics compare? So, a telemarketing campaign versus a LinkedIn campaign, what sort of success ratios or likelihood of leads or whatever would you get from one or the other?
Certainly. Well, speaking from my own experience, I've gone from calling was the first thing I did back in the early 90s. You don't look that old, Dan. No, I am. No, I do look that old. I've reached that point where I can't joke about that anymore. Let me just go, yeah. You look 45. Going back, way back, the phone was the way of getting business. You either went out and knocked on doors, you sent mail out. Yes, there were faxes still, but phone was still the way.
Yeah.
And we were always targeted on amount of calls per day, which usually hovered around the 100 plus calls per day mark. Obviously, results vary across the sector you're in, the time of year, the time of day, what your competitors are up to. There's so many things that affect the results of any marketing campaign. But certainly I've noticed since I started calling back in the early 90s up to now, that it has got a lot harder. You could traditionally make, even going back maybe 4 or 5 years, 100 calls. I would usually expect to get 2 or 3 appointments, maybe a day out of that, or at least 2 or 3 decent conversations out of 100 calls. But then going back to maybe a year, 18 months ago, certainly in a lot of the sectors that we were targeting as a telemarketing business at the time, that dropped down to maybe 1 or 2 appointments per week. So the business is still there to get, certainly, and if you know what you're doing, if you research the market well, if there is a need for the product or service you're offering, then certainly you will still get success out of it. But compare that to LinkedIn, again, using sort of similar metrics. If we were sending out over the course of a month, we've had to reduce the numbers of activity that we do on LinkedIn. That's probably something I'll get onto in a short while. That it has got harder for agencies and companies like mine to offer this as a service, because there have been a lot of companies abusing it, just spamming people with messages that aren't relevant to them, sending sales pitches out the second they connect and all that sort of stuff.
I get those all the time for people that connect with me and then they launch into a sales pitch.
But on an average week, we would typically expect to see anywhere between 3 to 7 decent leads out of that. Now, the question I always get asked whenever I'm pitching our services to anybody is, what is a lead? The way we work, we basically score everything the same way you would in a CRM. So we give a lead score depending on how likely we see that is going to convert into a sale. So a normal week, a lead score of 3 for us would be, there's somebody's expressed an interest there, but there needs to be a little bit more nurturing done. So maybe they've asked for some information by email, they've provisionally agreed to take a call, something like that. And a 4 would be kind of one step past that. So there's a firm interest, they want a meeting, they want a call, they're happy to jump on a Zoom chat or whatever. So in a typical week, we'd probably see maybe 3 or 4 around the stage 3, and then 2 or 3 around the stage 4 out of consistent activity on LinkedIn each week.
Yeah, but as a
That
cost
was a very
per
long
lead,
answer.
but that's a good it's a good comparison, and obviously as a cost per lead, it's significantly lower on LinkedIn, because the cost of having someone making 100 calls a day is quite high, across a month.
Yes, it's that was certainly the biggest cost for me when that was my business, was staffing costs, and then in addition to that, you've got office rent, CRM systems, telephony, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's certainly a very cost-effective way of generating business. You don't have to invest a ton of time into LinkedIn. You just really have to have a plan. Who are you looking to reach on LinkedIn? Who do you want to see your posts? What are you looking to get out of it? Are you looking for a job? Are you looking to generate business? Are you looking to raise your profile as a public speaker? What is it? Just have an idea in your head. What are you on LinkedIn for? And then essentially ensuring that you're doing consistent, regular activities each day. Which, we can cover in a little bit more detail, but the basics are sending out connection requests, dealing with replies that come in, sending messages out to people, putting content out, making sure that you're engaging with other people's content. And that's where the momentum builds up and it starts to work for people, really.
Yeah, so it's not just have a profile and hope that people come to you. It's actually trying to deliver value through the content or messages that you're sending, but also then it's called a social network or social selling, because you want to be interacting with other people.
And that's certainly a thing that a lot of people do wrestle with and have trouble with, the whole concept of social selling. Particularly if you get a situation where there's a boss of a company and he's got, 10 sales guys out on the road, or girls, and he just said, right, get on LinkedIn. Now, if you start approaching LinkedIn the same way you would targeting people on your sales patch, very quickly you're going to start irritating people. So the social aspect of it is, to give people knowledge, to give people information. Don't be pitching at people all the time. Don't be asking for business all the time, but build up that awareness, build up those relationships with people, get them to know you as the representative of that company, not just the products or services that you're selling.
Yeah. Would you say that I was going to ask you about what are the common things that people get wrong, but from my view, it would be too much pitching you've got to do some pitching, of course, but I think, was it Gary Vee talks about, I think, jab, right hook or something like that. In other words, 25% asking for something and 75% is giving value away.
Yes. Yeah, it is. That's it. I think there's a balance to keep there, that, yes, it's great to be putting out personal stuff and letting people know who you are. And that's where you build up the brand of you. Sorry to use that. Not only do I hate people referring to themselves as a brand, I hate people doing that. And I've done both. But yeah, if you don't remind people of how you can help them every so often, they'll just forget. You're just a face and a name on LinkedIn. It's you have to keep that balance, get them to know you, but also keep reminding them what it is you can do to help them.
Yeah. What are the other sort of pitfalls or mistakes that you see people making quite commonly? The top couple of other things that.
Lurking is one that I put down when I was prepping for this. People that lurk. Now, some of that could be down to just a lack of confidence in what to post. it can be a bit daunting in many ways, LinkedIn, because of this banner of it being a professional site, because people are representing their business or their boss's business, or, you know, there's a pressure there. Am I saying the right thing? Can I do this? Can I do that? So that, you know, creates a situation where a lot of people do just lurk around. I think you put a post out yourself recently that it's only something like 4 or 5% of people that post regularly on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you take the effort and take the time to put something out and keep that consistent and regular, you're already going to be a step ahead of 95% of the people that are on the site. So it makes absolute sense.
And any like really basic stuff, like I don't know, for me, if somebody sends me a connection request and there's no photograph, for example, I think, oh, I'm not sure about that. Is there stuff like that make a difference?
Well, people buy from people, don't they? It's if you are absolutely new to LinkedIn and completely wet behind the ears with it, just think of it as being at a networking event. And if you behave weirdly at a networking event, you're not going to walk away with many business cards. People might remember you, but for the wrong reasons, you know. So just behave the same way that you would. Get involved in conversations. Don't launch in and pitch at people. Don't run across the room and, I don't know, leer at some woman's breasts while you're handing your business card over to them. All this behaviour doesn't do well on LinkedIn. So.
No. Yeah, I've seen a few posts from it tends to be from ladies saying that men have been sort of sending them leery messages and stuff, which I think, oh God, that's horrendous.
Well, clearly that's a way big mistake to be making on LinkedIn. I mean, firstly, it's deeply unpleasant for the recipient of it. But secondly, just have a bit of sense. You're representing yourself and your business here. Yeah. They can see who you are. They can see who you work for. They can send messages to your boss and let them know that you've been sending inappropriate messages to them or making advances on LinkedIn. So it's there are sites for that. This isn't one of them. So go over there. Go to Tinder or Plenty of Fish or wherever it is.
I mean, as you know, I post dirty pictures on LinkedIn all the time, but that's dirty floors.
Floors.
So I think that's probably
they are
okay.
Disgusting. X-rated.
That's probably okay.
X-rated pics.
Yes. And what about, I mean, you've kind of given a bit of a list, but maybe going into a bit more depth, you know, what does good look like? So, you know, for example, content, you know, how often, what type of content, photograph versus video versus text, etc. How do you sort of advise people to approach that?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I guess the first thing I'd say is that it's important to have a good mix. You know, try and see what content resonates and works well with your audience. Nobody truly understands the algorithm on LinkedIn and what it's doing. So trying to game it in any way or understanding that if I do this or that, it's going to cause this and this, just be genuine, be yourself. And over time, you will get a feel for what works. You know, I mean, LinkedIn does provide you with statistics as to how many people have viewed your posts, how many comments you've had. You can use that information, put it into a spreadsheet if you want to, and keep track of what sort of thing has resonated well. There are a number of apps and extensions and things that will allow you to do that. There's one called shield.app, which I've looked at myself before. If you really want to get into the analytics of how well your posts are performing, that's a great tool. You can categorize things, so you can look at whether, I don't know, funny posts are doing better than serious ones, or picture posts are doing better than videos, or posting at certain times of day works better than others. Obviously, you don't have to go to the trouble of having an extension to do that, but it certainly saves a lot of work if you really do want to delve into it. So, yeah, it's content, keep a variety. Don't use it as a free advertising platform, because those sort of posts won't do very well. You know, if all you're doing is saying, we do this, come to us, 25% discounts. LinkedIn does not want you to get free advertising. It wants you to pay for advertising. Yeah. But that's not to say that you can't be clever about it and still weave a salesy message or weave a success story into a post. real world proof of how you've helped people is far better than you just telling them.
Yeah, we're good.
Uh,
Believe me.
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really help, does it?
No.
And I always think what's worked for me well is trying to ask questions and get engagement and try and get conversations.
Yes.
So rather than here's a statement
Yeah.
about something, it's actually here's a viewpoint. What do you guys think, or how could this help you, or something like that. And I think that tends to encourage people to then jump on the comments, which is what you want, really. Isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because each time there is a comment in particular, it's more likely then to be noticed by more people. The more comments and likes you can get on your post, the wider the reach of that post will go. And as you know yourself, I mean, we've dabbled in a couple of engagement pods and things in the past where, if any of your viewers don't know, is basically a group where people are encouraged to engage with each other's content on not just LinkedIn, but people do them on Instagram, Twitter, loads of places. And when you are seeing posts of pretty much the same people coming up each day, you'll get a feel that some are quite difficult to comment on. There's just something about the way the post has been formed. There's just something lacking there. How can I get involved when somebody's talking about packing tape, for instance? That's one example that sticks in my mind. How many interesting comments can I put? Oh, great packing tape. So, put something that's going to be emotive and is going to get people talking. Don't just go, oh, look at these fantastic crates that we do, because who's going to be interested in talking about that?
No, well, and there will be some people, I'm sure, but not that many. And I suppose it's about trying to have that balance, isn't it, of getting out there to a wide enough audience that your message can be heard. But equally, I suppose.
I was going to say, credit to yourself, and I've had comments from other people about the content that you put out. I think you do a very good job of, so I'm blowing smoke up your backside here, of conveying what to many people could be quite a dull message in a good, informative manner. Sorry if I've just broken it to you that dirty floors aren't that interesting.
No, I know it's not. Yeah, no, I know it's not, but it is important. So it's, I mean, I just try to, I suppose I'm always thinking about, the outcomes as well. So it's not about is the floor dirty or not. Clearly that's important, but what does that mean? So, if you're operating a shopping centre and your floor is dirty and slippery, well, that means that you're putting people at risk, and that means you're going to have accidents, and that means you're going to have insurance claims, and you're going to have costs, and your insurance premium is going to go up, and your profit's going to go down. So it's kind of like focusing on that, and a bit of humour as well. I think sometimes helps on. I mean, obviously I can't quite match some of your posts for humour, but I try my best occasionally.
Humour is subjective. Many people may argue that they weren't funny in the slightest, but we do what we do. Hey?
Yeah, I mean, I do think the content to me is really important, because I've had people. I've gone to. I remember going, for example, to a meeting with an insurance company with a particular guy, and he brought his colleague along, and his colleague sat down and said, "Oh, I know you. I see your posts on LinkedIn all the time."
Yeah.
And I've been to trade shows where people have stopped me and said, "Oh, I've seen your stuff on LinkedIn." And so it is. I think putting the content out there, if you can get it the right sort of content that reaches a good audience and is kind of memorable enough, I think it does pay dividends. And it might not mean you get an inquiry that day, but it's positioning yourself for the future, and you never know when. I guess you just want to be seen as the person to talk to in that particular field, as and when somebody has a problem.
Whatever that field is, that is your aim, so that a cross-section of people, hopefully the entire market, whenever they think of that, they think of you. That's what you want to get, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, a thought I had earlier on, which I meant to mention when we were talking about the comparison to telemarketing, that's a sort of good point you raised there, that telemarketing and cold calling in general is quite a one-hit wonder exercise. You either get hold of the person and you've got your opportunity to do your pitch and win them over and all the rest of it, or you don't. In which case you send an email, you leave a voicemail, you phone back and you repeat. Whereas there are longer term benefits of the awareness that you're creating for yourself on LinkedIn. Like you just demonstrated, you had no idea those people would recognize you from there. But that with itself carries some credibility and awareness. They know you, familiarity and all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good.
yeah, the compound effect. I mean, we're recording this it won't be broadcast today, but today I put a post on LinkedIn which got a lot of engagement, asking people's views on how frequently you should post. And that's
Yes.
another thing, it's kind of thinking about the compounding effect of doing stuff regularly, but not. I think the consensus would be not too much. If you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, LinkedIn has a quest to, well, they seem to be to me on a quest to try and reduce what they consider to be spammy behaviour, full stop. That includes sending out invites to people that aren't welcome, sending out messages to people that aren't welcome, and also includes putting out content that they consider to be spammy. They want to try and create a friendly environment for all of the users of the place so that people don't feel they're being overly pitched to or pestered. So I think if you are posting too much, and nobody really knows what too much is, but just, if you get a gut feeling that I'm doing too much of this, your posts won't get as much reach than if you're just putting out maybe 3 or 4 a week, but they're better positioned and they're getting more engagement. The algorithm will pick up the fact that you're putting stuff out that nobody's interested in. So it's keeping that interest going.
Yeah. Okay. And what about something that I know you've been transitioning into doing more is kind of engagement with other people's posts. I mean, talk to us a little bit about that in terms of what the benefits are of that versus, as you say, sending out a spammy message or something like that.
Yeah, certainly. So it really is. It comes down to sort of the law. I'm going to have to get the word right now. Reciprocity. Was I get it right the first time?
You get it right the first time, yeah.
You went to a better school than me, but I can still. I'm certainly a better university because I didn't go to one at all. Reciprocity. I got it right the first time. It's, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. That's what it comes down to. If all you're doing is putting out your own content, even if it is really good content, if you don't really have much of a network on LinkedIn, and particularly if you're not engaging with other people's posts, that content won't do very well. And that's the biggest reason I find why people are getting frustrated that they're putting posts out and nothing's coming back off it. You've got to give to get back. So if you are expecting people to go on to your posts and like them and comment on them and get involved, great. But you've got to do that to the other people first to get that to come back to you. And that's not in any way gaming the system. That's not, if you put out this amount, it'll cause this to come back. It's just the basics of building relationships with people. You talk to them, they'll talk back to you. Going back to the networking analogy, it just works like that. If all you do is stand in the corner of a room and shout, people are going to think you're weird and they won't want to talk to you. Whereas if you're asking questions, you're talking back and forth, then that's what it comes down to.
And I suppose it's going back to that Gary Vee stuff, isn't it, as well? You're kind of giving something by engaging with them first, rather than the take of them, of accepting them engaging with you, if that makes sense. I know it's not exactly what he meant, but it kind of similar. Okay. Is it worth just explaining how it works, as in, so you're doing stuff for me on LinkedIn. What does that mean in terms of, the sort of work that you're doing, and are you logging in and doing stuff as me? Are you doing content for me? Are you doing connection requests? How does it work from if somebody's watching and thinking, that actually I can see the benefit of doing more on LinkedIn, but I'm interested to know how it actually works. So if I said to Dan, okay, I'd like you to work with me, how would it actually physically operate?
Certainly. So in terms of what we do for yourself and for other clients, it really ranges from the basics, which is we can just do a profile makeover for somebody, so improve their banner, improve their about section on there, so it carries the right wording, it appeals to the people they're looking to do business with, and right up to sort of full profile management, where we will post, we will send out connection invites, we will send out messages, we will reply to incoming messages, we will invite people that have engaged with the content we're putting out, a whole manner of things. And the other stuff as well, skill endorsements, viewing people's pages, following people, whole gamut of things really. There's a lot we do now. what I will add, because as you know, we've been doing this 2 years, and the way we've approached it and things has had to change. We don't use automation for the process anymore because it's dangerous. Essentially, the last thing I would want to do is compromise or risk any client's account. So, in answer to the point about how it actually works, we act as that client. We log into their LinkedIn account. That's done very securely. We use a dedicated IP address, so we're always coming in from the same location each time. We keep all of their passwords and login information secure. And as I say, once we're in their account, we follow a list of tasks that we're doing daily. So we're doing a certain amount of invites, certain amount of likes, certain amount of comments, putting posts out, and we work off checklists. So we're doing certain things on certain days of the week. But for anybody managing their own LinkedIn, I can certainly train people and coach people on the approach that we take and what works. But for a lot of the clients that we work with, they're getting us to do all of that work because it is quite time consuming, particularly if you are doing it manually as we do now. It's, if I do say so myself, very well planned out. We track everything. It's managed the same way as it would be if you were managing a pipeline of contacts in a CRM. So we approach it the same way you would if you were targeting people on any sort of prospect list, essentially. With every client, again, going back to what I said earlier, it's very transparent. So we work very closely with them in terms of the messages we're putting out, the content, what images we put on their pages and all that sort of stuff. So it's very much a two-way street.
It's kind of, I would say it's akin to having a virtual assistant, or it's kind of like that. That would be sending emails out on your behalf. Lots of people I know do that. Don't actually have an inbox on their phone. They have a virtual or an executive assistant or whoever that manages their email, and they only see the 2 or 3% of emails that that person can't deal with. So something similar to that. And obviously, as you say, there's different categories and things. So, for me, for example, I do all the content and stuff like that because I kind of enjoy that, and whereas other people, I suppose, maybe haven't been doing that and need a bit more help with it. And so it's good to be able to be bespoke.
We've got a couple of clients where we're just doing content. We've got a couple of clients where we're doing content, but we're also doing some engagement tasks. So we're liking and commenting on other people's posts, which, going back to what I said earlier, then helps the reach of the content we're putting out for them. So, people can pick and choose. I've kind of broken our services down so we don't have to do everything. We can just do little bits, start off small, ramp it up. And as hopefully you will testify, I'm always here to talk to, if anybody we're working with, I'm always happy to jump on a call and
as long as it's not before 9 a.m.
Very rarely, no.
Although right now you're probably around more, but normally you'd be swimming, wouldn't you? So
I missed it all, to be honest. Missed the gym sector, as I'm sure you have.
Well, it won't be long till it's open again, I think. A few more weeks from when we're recording this.
One second, sorry, this is my wife's got my debit card and needs my PIN to pay for something, so I've just had to reply to the text.
Let's make sure that gets done.
Sorry if I just went blank a little second there. So hopefully that's been useful.
Is there anything that that I should have asked you, or anything else that people be useful for people to know about how to generate leads on LinkedIn that we haven't touched upon?
One question you asked, which we haven't really sort of covered in a structured form, is the top 3 tips to improve your LinkedIn performance. I think you said 3. You said 3, and then you pushed me for 5, but I thought I'd go for 3, quality over quantity.
Well, then let's have the top 3.
Right, top 3. So, firstly, understand what you are on LinkedIn for. What are you looking to get out of it? That's the starting point. Are you on here to find a job? Are you on here to generate business? Are you on here to build up your profile for some other reason? Because that then will shape everything else you do on LinkedIn. If you don't have an idea in your head what you're on here for and what you want to get out of it, you're on a hide into nowhere. It'll just become sporadic and rubbish. So have a clear idea in your head, and that means understanding who your customers are, what value you can bring to them, how you can help them, all that sort of stuff. Once you've got that in your head, you then need to make sure you are building your network up with the right people. So connecting, following, engaging with the people that you want to do business with. And also making sure that your profile, your LinkedIn profile page, very clearly shows in a helpful, clear way what help you can bring to people and why they should connect with you. Give them a compelling reason to want to be in your network.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was 3. There was a last one. Oh yeah, we'll go for 4. And the last one, get posting. Don't be afraid. Have a look what people are doing. Don't worry about LinkedIn being a professional network and you have to put corporate stuff out all the time. Just
people don't want to hear that corporate stuff, I think.
Well, that's it. People aren't interested in it. It's.
I think it needs to be. That's the reason why. One of the reasons why I wouldn't ever outsource my content piece, because I think it needs to be authentic and it needs to be you. And that isn't corporate speak. That's kind of the real you that people want to hear about.
But I will say, if you get a good company that can do content for you, written genuinely from the heart with personality and humour and humanity and all the rest of it, like I do, then it's not so much of a worry.
No, of course, yeah. I can see that because, of course, copywriting and all these other things. There's always a place for that as well. But I just think I quite enjoy doing this, and actually I look at it as a bit of a game and managing, as you said earlier, sort of seeing what the stats are and what the engagement is, and trying to improve, have a little battle against myself to improve the performance over time. Is always quite interesting, sort of gamification of it. Great. Well, Dan, if people have listened to this and found it interesting, which I'm sure they have, and useful, and they want to have a chat with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Certainly. Well, contact details are on our website, which is weareingenious.com. Now, Ingenious, because I'm awkward, isn't spelt the way it normally would be. It's INGENIUS, so no O in there. So weareingenious.com. I'm happy to connect with people on LinkedIn. If you find me on there, it's linkedin.com/ingenious Dan. Unfortunately, I have quite a common first name and surname, so you may find it difficult to find me based on Dan Smith. But
there's probably a few of those about,
Yeah, there's quite a lot. And connect with me, follow me, get involved. Again, I'm always more than happy to get on calls and chat to people and talk through ideas. I don't charge for stuff like that, it's just getting to know each other type of exercise. So if it is something that people want to have a quick chat about, I'm not Mr. Pushy. I won't talk people into things that I don't feel are right for them. Hopefully that's been useful.
Good stuff. All right. Well, thanks very much, Dan. I appreciate it, and hopefully it's been of use to those of you watching or listening, depending on how you're consuming this content. And we will look forward to following and liking and resharing and doing all that good stuff with you on LinkedIn in the days, weeks, and months ahead.
Excellent. All right. Have a very nice weekend. Good talking to you.
Cheers. Thanks, Dan.
Take care.